Welcome, everyone, to the Feminine Outliers podcast, your dose of fun, life advice, and experiences from two African professional women living and working in the Western world. We are your hosts, Zelda Wasal, and we are excited to have you here with us. So, welcome back to another episode. This week, as you can see from the title of this episode, we are talking about emotional intelligence. And if you have listened to some of our other episodes, it's you probably know that it hints there that this is something we're both very passionate about slash can rant a lot about. um, so I'm excited to dive deep into you know emotional intelligence and how it's impacted our lives. But as per usual, we are going to start with our unlearning segments. So um, I will go ahead and start with what I have been unlearning this week. So I've been unlearning feeling guilty for putting myself first, or for maybe you can quote unquote say being a bit selfish, but I would probably say just for putting myself first. Because I am someone who in the past would always think about others. Like, I always try to think, oh, how would someone else feel? And I guess it's part of being an empath. I'd be like, oh, how does so and so feel? And then you try to accommodate their feelings, their reactions, and all that stuff. And you kind of put yours on the back burner because you're thinking about others before you think about yourself. And it's a very noble character, but it's not smart. Like, there's times in life in which, yes, you can put others before yourself. There are times it will be necessary, but there's also a lot of times it's not necessary. Because one of the things I came to learn in life is that people really do think of themselves first. And so if you're one of those people who doesn't, you're easily going to be knocked down or taken advantage of or something, because you easily just put others' needs before your own. And sometimes when I do that, whether it's saying no for to a certain request, or um, not going somewhere, I feel guilty because I'm like, oh, I feel bad for saying no to that person. But if that puts me at my in the best scenario possible, or if it's what works best for me, I just do it. Because, for example, I told Chloe earlier about this week. It's just been very. I'm working basically for the past 2 weeks. I've been working 12 out of the 14 days, and these are my only 2 days off, today and tomorrow. And then there's a wedding coming up, and I did mention that they wanted some help in the wedding, but I'm like, I only have 2 days off, and I need this time to myself because, one, I need to rest. Two, I need to clean. I need to do all the stuff I need to do. I need to cook for when I go back to work. Realistically speaking, like, I just need to recover because I've just come from a 9-day shift. And I kind of felt guilty. But then I realized, no, you know what's best for yourself, and you just have to do what's best for you, because you have to work at your optimal. And I can't go to the hospital on Saturday and I'm like exhausted, not able to think because I wasn't able to say no when I'm doing too much. Um, so I just learned, honestly, to, like, honestly, like, introspect and really be like, if this is the best choice for me, then this is what I'm going to do. So yeah, and not to feel like guilty about it. Mhm. 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 Right. Mhm. You can't pour from an empty cup. Mhm. What are you unlearning? Mm, hashtag maturity. Because you have to be mature enough to do that, like, and just you know, accept, the consequences of letting the chips fall where they fall, and not hiding your true emotions. But I mean, that's that's literally the when you hear people who feel free, or who feel like they're living in their true selves, that's part of the process. It's just learning to accept it for what it is. So, like in your case, you're like, I just have to be honest with my feelings, knowing that it might upset someone else. And upsetting someone else might have consequences that I don't necessarily desire, but I'm still going to go ahead with it because that I just have to be true to myself. And ultimately speaking, even if you lose someone because you're being true to yourself, have you really lost much? Because in a sense, it might just have been something or someone that doesn't work for you. And ultimately, it might just open the door for better and more out there, because now you have it kind of like has weeded out something you don't need in life. So you always hear, I mean, because we both listen to a lot of these, um like we listen to a lot of podcasts and read books and stuff. When people take that step to really just being their true selves, it's definitely hard initially, but then it's more beneficial in the end, because you just feel like you don't have to hide behind a veil and be ashamed of your true feelings, because I mean, your feelings are valid. And also, when you talk about what you're feeling, you might realize that, maybe I was misguided in how I was thinking, and it might actually have a more give you a positive outlook. So I like that. It's we're already tapping into emotional intelligence in our unlearnings in various ways. Exactly. Okay. Chole, I'm gonna cut this part out, but I need to run to the bathroom. Okay. I need to change my tampon. So just leave it recording. I'll cut it out. I'm back. I'm back, Cholwe, whenever or wherever you are. Oh, you're back. Okay. Oh. Sorry. I was like, why did my 1 hour of glory decide to start? I'm sorry. So, ready to continue? Okay. So, um, I'm really excited to get back to uh, our deep thinking topics. What did we talk about last week? I think we had a fun few topics, but that was kind of fun. I liked that. That was fun. Oh, and then there was also the previous week was the what would you do? Um, oh my goodness. Yeah, please stop doing that. And, and that, what would you do? We should do an episode on what would you do. But I guess now we're really tapping into some deep personal stuff that affects every one of us. So, you know, as per usual, I always start with what is like what does it mean? And so what does intelligence mean? What is the definition of emotional intelligence? And our handy dandy internet gives me a good description. And emotional intelligence is the ability to perceive, interpret, demonstrate, control, evaluate, and use emotions to communicate with and relate to others effectively and constructively. This ability to express and control emotions is essential, but so is the ability to understand, interpret, and respond to the emotions of others. And some experts actually suggest that emotional intelligence is more important than IQ for success in life. So I think it's a topic that we both are passionate about, and it's like a pet peeve for both of us because I mean, I think we would both describe ourselves as emotionally intelligent. Um, I don't think I started out that way, but I think the more I grew and really was working on self awareness, growing as a person, emotional intelligence was one of those things. um, that came to, and you also realize certain things as you read books and you compare it with your reaction, with your interactions with others. You realize, yeah, this is so true. That this is important to, be able to move on and to succeed in life. And for me, emotional intelligence, like the biggest place it has affected me is work. Um, because I have mentioned this in previous episodes as well. When people are sick or in the hospital, that's where all things go flying out of the window. It's like reason, your brain, it just goes flying out of the window. And emotions just really get out of control and stuff like that. And I have said multiple times, it is not my job as your doctor to control your emotions. Like it's not my job. And if it's making it hard for me to do my work, then it becomes an issue. And so the way it's saying this, it's like they have to be aware of their own emotions, what they're doing, why they're doing what they're doing. And also, I have to be aware of how to control my own emotions in response to what they're doing. And so it's like it's a two-way street, but it's also not just controlling. You can't control someone else's emotions, but you can control how you react to it. So this is essentially, the gist of emotional intelligence. And I think it goes hand in hand with, you know, someone who's self aware, self confident, self accepted, because you have to have a certain level of all of that to also be emotionally intelligent. So that's just like breaking ground. Do you have any initiating thoughts on that? Mm-hmm. 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 Right. Hmm. Yeah, that's a it's a mouthful, and a very deep one to think about because yeah, and I feel like someone who considers herself to be emotionally intelligent, it can honestly be a burden because yeah, I feel like we deal with a lot of people who don't have emotional intelligence. And so you kind of have to take the high road and realize, they're not really that emotionally intelligent, and you that will dictate also how you respond to things. Because go ahead. So, ideally, there are four components of emotional intelligence. There's perceiving emotions, reasoning with emotions, understanding emotions, and managing your emotions. So, perceiving emotions is the first step in understanding um, emotions in general. In many cases, this might involve understanding nonverbal signals such as body language and facial expressions. So you have to understand, like, what are your triggers to, or what made you perceive this emotion like this, or perceive something like that that leads you to having this emotion. Um, because you said like someone says something angrily to you, and you like your response to that. So like, why are you responding like that? Because you're perceiving that this person says something angrily to you, and you're reacting to that. That's step one. Step two is reasoning with your emotions. So it's basically promoting thinking and cognitive activity. Emotions help us to prioritize what we pay attention and react to, and we respond emotionally to these things to garner our attention. So reasoning. So okay, fine. I perceive that someone has said something hostile to me, and I also am feeling hostile towards them. Why am I feeling hostile towards them? Because they've reacted angrily to me. This is why I feel like this, or because they say this and this about me. This is why this is happening. So that is part of understanding your emotion as well, in which the emotions we perceive can carry a wide variety of meanings. So if someone is expressing angry emotions, the observer must interpret the cause of the person's anger and what it could mean. Um, and they give an example here, like, for example, if your boss is acting angry, it might mean they're dissatisfied with your work. Or it could be they got a speeding ticket on their way to work that morning, and they're just projecting onto you. So, like, you also have to, like, understand why, you know, why are we coming? Why is it coming through? And reasoning and understanding emotions, I think they go hand in hand and can kind of be very similar or the same things at times from my understanding. um because you're like really trying to figure out why is this the reaction, what's the trigger behind this. And then the fourth step, which is very important also, is managing your emotions. So the ability to manage emotions effectively is a crucial part of emotional intelligence at its highest level. Regulating emotions and responding appropriately, as well as responding to the emotions of others, are all important aspects of emotional management. So essentially, I'm saying I think we generally do a good job at those four things. And I think it's because we're introspective. And these things also require you to take a step back and pause before you actually respond. Sometimes, like, it's like, okay, This is happening in the moment. Let me give myself 5 seconds or so. Just think through this before you respond or you react. Because, like, for me, like at work, like if a patient's family is reacting angrily, they're mad that this has not been done for the patient, this has not been done, or this isn't that. And in my head, I know that this cannot, it makes no sense to do this or that because it's not going to change the outcome of the patient. But then they're coming from a place of frustration because they love their loved one who's sick in the hospital. That's their driving force. So for me to reason with that and understand that that's where the emotions are coming from can also help me know how to respond because they're not necessarily trying to be hostile and mean and angry. They're coming from a place of frustration. So if I can tackle the root cause of it and respond with cool, calm demeanor and be like, no, we don't do this and that. This is how we do things. That really helps with with me responding to them properly. So I'm also managing my own emotions after thinking through this is probably where they're coming from. Sometimes it fails and we act out as well and just try to put people in their places because sometimes it's hard. Like people just can't handle their emotions and let them go out of control and you kind of have to put them in their places. But it's just I think it's just a whole it's a huge part of life and it happens every day in all different scenarios. Like in my head I'm just like, can't you just control, like, or like if you get cut off in traffic, do you have to get so mad, like maybe you follow the person honking at them or something like that, like why? Hmm. It's contagious. You're already picturing it in your mind. You're like, Mhm. Mhm. Mm. Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I think it's funny because I feel like um some people might think silent treatment is emotionally intelligent. Like you're not acting out, you're just like keep it quiet. And so, I mean, it might be better than acting a fool or like really getting mad and blowing up, but like it's still not a smart thing to do because I feel like if you need time to yourself to process the emotions, think about what's happened, just tell someone, I need time to think. Let's address this. Please, let's address this later on. Instead of giving someone a silent treatment, which during the silent treatment, you're probably thinking through everything that happened anyways, but then you're also being giving them a cold shoulder. Just officially say, let's just not interact for now until we're ready to interact. And that way, it's more like mature thing to do because part of emotional intelligence is knowing how to express your emotions as well. And if you don't know how to do it, because also I feel like sometimes when people give you silent treatment and then like you're wondering, has it's happened to me before in which you're like, what happened? What did I do wrong? Like you don't know what you did wrong because they're not telling you what you did wrong, but someone assumes that you know what you did wrong. And that's another thing for me that is part and parcel of emotional intelligence is expressing your emotions, expressing what you're going through, and also realizing that you cannot just assume that so such and such is happening or so and so knows what you're feeling or so and so understands what you're going through because we're different people, different experiences, maybe grew up differently. Even if it's your family member, you're still an individual. So if you assume that someone understands why you're feeling that way and you just react to them like, no, you should get why I'm feeling this way, it doesn't help. That's not assuming things to me is part of my definition of being is part of being emotionally intelligent. You know, say talk about what you're feeling in a proper manner, in a respectful manner. But also don't just assume you know exactly what the other person's feeling or going through. Don't assume they're going through the same thing you're going through because that's where things start to get wrong. And I hate it when people like assume, like they're like, no, like you should get it. This is what's happening, blah 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 blah. And it's like, no, that's how you perceive this situation. That's how you got it. But for me, from my end, it didn't look the same. Hmm. 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 Right. uh, but then also that can fail us sometimes because it might all just be in your head. You you might honestly be like, that person is being passive aggressive to me, and they might just be simply being at their baseline, or like they don't know what's happening. This is why I think it becomes important to express your emotions in a respectful manner, because yes, I do agree. Body language and um, reading the room and passive aggressiveness, those are things that can be they are valid, and you can learn. You can really pick up a lot from a person from it. But ultimately speaking, just talk. If you're talking to someone, if it's worth it, like if someone's being passive aggressive to you, and maybe it's a colleague and you like them, I mean not like them, but like you just want to know because you work together, if it's worth it because you think it'll help your work relationship, just being like, hey, this is how I feel. Don't say I've noticed you are being passive aggressive. Say I feel like you're being passive aggressive, just because you never know, they might actually not be purposefully doing it. And you know, again, that's where expressing comes into play, and you can at least get to the root cause of the problem. If possibly, I know it's not as simple as that all the time. I know sometimes it's layers, or you might not be able to figure it out, but it's a good step because again, you're it all goes back to assumptions. You're assuming they're being passive aggressive based off what you have experienced in the past, your life, your environment, and all that. But your assumption may be wrong. I mean, who knows? Mhm. Right. Mhm. 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 Mm. Huh. I mean, when I think about that, I just think, in general, we're just, you're kind of made to feel like you're not supposed to have negative emotions. It's kind of like a, yeah, you're all supposed to be happy, and life is supposed to be, I don't know, happy go lucky. I mean, when it comes to positive emotion, it's maybe they're more the default than negative emotions. So you kind of just guilted into not being aware of negative emotions. But I mean, for there to be a balance, there has to be positive and negative emotions. And negative emotions are part and parcel of us. They're part and parcel of our lives. And we need to embrace both of them. So it's fine to feel sad if the equation falls for you to the occasion or whatever happened is made you feel sad. I think it's just learning to embrace our emotions, whatever it may be. If you're angry at someone because someone did something that's worth being angry at them, embrace it. But it's fine because it's a valid emotion. The only thing is that don't act on it without thinking through what you're going to do or how you're going to respond. That's where, like, if you're angry at someone, maybe the first thing in your mind would be punch them, but don't act on it because that's wrong. You have to stop and be like, okay, it's fine for me to be angry with them, but it doesn't mean I have to punch them. We just have to learn how to accept negative emotions, honestly, because it's kind of like, I don't know, if you think about kids, little kids, and when they just sit there crying, like they don't give it something and they just cry and cry and cry, and the parents just let them cry and cry and cry. And then after they're done crying, they kind of just like move on. It's like they were let to simmer in their emotions, they were let to experience that negative emotion, and they experienced it wholeheartedly. And then after they're done experiencing it, they moved on. So, mhm, mm, mhm, mhm, mm. Yeah, and I mean, what you said just to me, what it made me think about is that this starts from childhood. It literally starts from childhood. Because if you feel like your parents allowed you to bask in your negative emotions in a controlled manner, again, everything has to be in a controlled manner, because there's some negative emotions you really need to control. Um, but you're allowed to experience them. You know, you might grow up being, it's fine for me to be depressed every now and then. I will just sit down and, I feel like when you accept the emotion, you're actually able to now reason through it and understand why you're going through this emotion. That gives you room to really think through, why am I experiencing this emotion? And when you think about it, why you're experiencing an emotion, you can actually start working on how you can actually solve the problem. But if you're not allowed to be sad, you just gloss over the problem still exists, and it will still rear its head in some form or way and force you to address it at some point. But it may be way worse when you have to do it or have more consequences. But if you just sit down and be like, hey, I'm sad. This happened to me today. This happened and just made me sad. Or I heard about this and made me sad. This is why it made me sad. And then this is what I can do to make myself better. It seems so elemental. Um, but I think it's so important. Um, I just think it's so important. Like it's and it's just one of those things in life. Like you since we're at least we're talking about emotions, it's you have to embrace the positive and the negative. In life, it's the same thing. You have to embrace the positive and the negative. It's part of the ups and downs of life in general. And so yeah. It's funny because we're really, we're thinking about this and it's like a lot is going on in my head and I'm like, huh, we really have to, like, this is all part of just going through our emotions and just being able to. But that's why I keep on saying everything has to be in a controlled manner, because if you get uncontrolled, it starts to now affect other people or even yourself worse, and that's when it becomes an issue. And again, for me, that's my issue. I don't When your emotions start to affect me and I have to control for that, I get really irritated because I'm like, no, it's your job to control your own emotions. It's not my job to control your emotions. So you know, yeah. I mean, I guess that's one of my pet peeves. But mm, mm. Mm. Right. You need to be think a little bit deeper, not surface level. Why are you angry? Mhm. 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 And obviously, I mean, as you said, it helps you realize how different cultures respond to things, but you might not even know how they respond to things. So it gives you the grace to handle an awkward situation when when it shows up, because you did not realize that that's what was the meaning behind X, Y, and Z. And so it helps you just approach it with a little bit more of maturity and more calmness, because you're like, okay, you know what, this is what I meant, and this is how I'm going to handle my emotions in this and that way, because you realize I mean, you don't know everything. So this is why managing emotions is so important, because like life can throw you so many different things in different ways. And if you're not emotionally intelligent to handle what gets thrown at you, particularly when it's a curveball that you did not see coming your way, I, like how are you going to be how are you going to how are you going to handle it? How is it going to leave you? You know, it just ends up, I feel like this is where people just get shortchanged in life. And some people might think, look, might hear the word emotional intelligence and roll their eyes, but don't realize how it hits in every stage of life. But I mean, we can keep talking. This is one of those topics which is just like a deep topic where you like have some tea or some wine and just keep going and going and going. But hey, let's leave some practical tips. How can you practice emotional intelligence? So, one of the ways is being able to accept criticism and responsibility. Um, Another way is being able to move on after making a mistake. I'm assuming that is after you've realized why you made the mistake and all that. Um, uh, Being able to say no when you need to, being able to share your feelings with others. So it's funny because I think both our unlearnings were just touched on with those two statements. Um, Being able to solve problems in ways that work for everyone, having empathy for other people, having great listening skills, knowing why you do the things you do, and lastly, but very important, in my opinion, is not being judgmental of others. Um, I think that's how emotional intelligence helps, because you just realize you just don't, when you stop, think, surface level and quote unquote, whatever you consider common sense might not necessarily become common sense. And you realize there might be a different angle to this situation. Mhm. 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 Yeah, I agree. I agree. And that brings us to the end of this deep thinking emotional intelligence episode. I hope our listeners have learned something about it. Let us know what's your journey with emotional intelligence. What do you think about emotional intelligence? We'd be really curious to know what you think, interact with you. We're on all major podcast platforms, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it, we're on it. Um, you can also, interact with us with there's I believe on Spotify there's a place to say send us a text message and we'll get, your message. You can email us on the feminineatliers@gmail.com as well. You can write in the comment section on YouTube. We will review it. We'll respond to you as well. Um, Again, I mean, as we're just trying to continue to build a community and interact with you, our followers. So, yeah. And feel free to like, subscribe, share it with everyone who you think would benefit from it. And yeah, so thank you guys for listening to another episode. Until next time, have fun, live large, and don't be afraid to be an outlier.